This is week 96. So starting off the week, I decided that do I would go and do the continue on my work with the course. I was wrapping up the digital painting course, the last few things, and kind of getting. I was doing the last exercise, but I stopped at like putting in the finer details. I didn't want to put in. It's like I kind of got the point of the exercise. Like I didn't want to go in and add like fine details and really get experience and practice like with the project. I felt comfortable knowing like the underlying concepts of what to do. Um, but I made sure to go through and the rest of the course and pretty much review and just get the underlying information and ideas of the course without like putting a lot of time like with hands-on practice. If I felt that I needed like some hands-on with Procreate to get the concepts down, I would do that. But I really made sure I was efficient with my time. Um, After I kind of felt comfortable that I got most of what I could out of this course, I was wanting to get started with my first artwork piece, but I was kind of thinking and working and planning about it. Like the one major thing was like I felt comfortable doing um, the scene now with coloring and shading and all that kind of stuff, and I had the vision for where I wanted, but what I really didn't really felt comfortable with was actually the focal point of the piece, the actual character artwork. Um, I didn't know how to properly draw a character at all, so I decided to go ahead and actually go into this next course that I bought, which is mainly like this other course had a character section, but it was like a rough overview. This next course mainly specifically focused on um, drawing characters specifically. Um,
Draw the
for example,
ellipses.
like how to draw dynamically, like with like 3D volumes and shapes, and So I did the same thing with this course. Like, in order to actually draw properly, I had to get like a proper foundation and knowledge and just some basic hands-on. So what I did do is I did follow and I did a ton of these kind of like shapes. What's really important is you get like the 3D form correct for the character depending on their pose. And this is just the beginning, but it gives me a good understanding of like how to the process of how to draw an actual character, a correct character, without going into too much of an anatomy and stuff. But it really did improve my abilities. I have never actually done proper character drawing before, and this allowed me to really get a understanding of from the process of character, because character drawing is a little bit different from environmental and scene. There's just a few things like how to draw faces and heads and details and things like that, eyes and just everything you could possibly need to know about like drawing a proper character. And then I got through this. Um, it did teach me about how to do hair and clothes correctly, like the folds in the clothes. I'm not an expert, but it gave me like a proper understanding of like how to approach drawing these things like in a sort semi-realistic and believable way, not just like not just like the amateur like oh yeah so I did the same thing with this course. So like in the middle of the week, like, I spent a whole like it was just a pure slog of like I did some hands-on what I thought I needed to, but like at the end, it was really like just listening and kind of internalizing, which is not really learning until you actually get hands-on with paper. But I didn't want to spend a lot of time doing a lot of these examples and stuff. I think it's like I'll get the real hands-on when I'm actually doing for my own project. That would be the most efficient way to do it. And as I do more art pieces for my project, I'll become better over time. So it took a lot of time to get through this course, and by the end, I was completely shot. But I made sure that I squeezed every last drop of value. A lot of these, anytime I felt like it was, I've learned these lessons before, it's not new. I kind of skipped forward, but like I made sure that I went through each video once. If I need to come back and review, I know where the information is. And yeah, every video I made sure to go through, and every once in a while there was a good little tidbit of information or knowledge and stuff like that. So it's a good resource, but I just made sure to make sure I was time effective. But it took a while to get through all this stuff, and yeah, it was like speed running art school for sure. But I finally got through with this, and I was ready to get started with my first art piece. It was kind of difficult. It was kind of difficult to get started with Procreate. It's like taking the first steps, and it's just like, it's kind of like when I was creating my first level, there was this little, it kind of felt overwhelming. Like, how do I even start? But I kind of reviewed and put together a plan, and I kind of figured out how I was going to approach this problem. Watching other videos, other resources, like just making sure I had all the pieces in place before I attempted something like this. And I eventually got Procreate up and running, and what I did, my first plan was to one of the videos I was watching, he's like a professional artist, so what he can do is he can actually visualize a scene with like buildings like this. He doesn't need a direct reference. What he did, he has a vision, and he can actually draw out the actual building lines in perspective, and then go and create the actual right colors and values from them. What I did instead, because I already had a game scene level, I went and posed my character inside the scene that it had already built. I took a screenshot of it, of kind of like what I was envisioning, and that actually saved me a step to where the buildings are already kind of in perspective to it. All I needed to do was actually set up the perspective vanishing points in Procreate to kind of align to what's already there. So if I needed to add something new, so it's almost like I was working in a training wheels kind of way, where it's like I'm not creating everything from my own vision, but I'm heavily relying on different references to get me to the finish line, especially for my first art piece. Like, at some point, maybe I can actually work directly from my vision and imagination, but most of the time I need to actually heavily rely on like different reference artwork. So that's what I did. I took a screenshot, imported it into Procreate, and kind of made sure to set up all the perspective lines correctly according to the actual screenshot. Now, I'm basically not exactly tracing over this, but using the scene for my artwork. So first thing I did was kind of set up a little bit of logo, position the logo. Where's the logo? And I was just kind of really, at this point, I was like, how do I even start? And I was just like, okay, let's just block out the values for the major element values, like the sky. Okay, the sky, I'll have a light color or whatever, and then maybe like a lighter gray because it goes from far to so dark. Close is dark, far is lighter dark. So I kind of made sure, okay, it's like the building's closer, it's a darker gray, and then the elements in the front are even darker than that. What I did was block out the character, like do a clip because the character is a little small in this reference, so I clipped it out in another layer and I kind of repositioned and blocked it out, kind of move it forward, and then kind of adjusted it specifically where I wanted it to be, kind of more present in the foreground. Just reposition the character element and just blocking out stuff, and got the blocking out done. And then I started working on the first. At this point, when I got the block out, I was like, okay, because this is the first time I've ever done anything. It's like, I was trying to find my process, like, because it's the very first time. I'm sure the next piece, like, I'll have a better familiar grasp. And reviewing the videos, there's kind of two ways to go about it. Like, you could either do like the two-pass process, which you just do grayscale values, and then the next pass you come and colorize it. And I'd never really done that exactly in Procreate, but I decided to experiment with this first process instead of doing, which the second process is to go and do the color and value in one pass. I might do that. I might try that process out in my next piece. To kind of experiment, just kind of feel like which one's better for me. But I decided to go with just the values. So I kind of just heavily used what's here and just kind of just picked out different values. So lighter gray to white, and then darker gray to black, to kind of get the values blocked out just for the central building first off, and just very roughly got that done. Then I moved on to the trees a little bit, do a little texture there. And then I worked on this right side building here, just kind of doing the exact same thing. And I kind of repeated the process for each of these elements, and just kind of went through and made sure that, like, all these little highlights, for each little window and stuff, for these background buildings. Just go and do that. Each one of these buildings, this background building too, same thing. Just go and do highlights. And then after that, just doing some other stuff in the background and that building in the corner. Then this individual element, same thing. Light and dark highlight values in grayscale. Then the bus here, as best as I can do it. The point was, it's not meant to be perfect. It's just to kind of match what's there, to give a feeling of like it's not just it's not just a lazy screen art clip for my main menu. I could probably make it look decent, but I wanted this custom feel, like a custom painted artwork for my main menu. And then the ground, some texturing and stuff. Just a bunch of work. Several hours of work. Just keep working, keep detailing, Then I kind of got to this sign over here, this next element. I got everything blocked out, and I was kind of working on the sign, and this is the first time I was actually starting to mess around with the color stage. And I was trying to, work with Procreate, like, okay, how do you do this colorize? I was working with different blending modes, trying to get the feel right, because this sign, like, I was working with like emissions and like how do you set up emissions and how does it work with like grayscale when you do colorize, and trying to get like the process right for doing colorization and all these sort of things, because I'd have to do it for the rest of the artwork. So I finally got a kind of handle on it, like what looks good, what works, how do you do it in Procreate. And I got it colorized and shaded properly for the actual values. And yeah, and the custom artwork, you can kind of match it, but the point is not to match it exactly. You can kind of get some of the details, but so here I was doing a lot of experimenting and stuff. And I finally got it looking pretty decent. And from there, kind of moved on. I did the foreground, like a mist shading or whatever, and Same thing with the sky, like black, kind of blended in on different layers, so the um, the background buildings fade into the night sky. It's rather interesting. Again, not going for perfection, but really experimenting. And I was adding these kind of volumetric light things from a different tutorial I've seen. I think it turned out pretty good. I don't know how to do that. And just colorizing and shading the bus now. I decided not to do like the rain effects for the scene, just keep it dry, because there's a whole other element of making the clothes wet and stuff. So I just kind of, yeah, just doing a lot of different work and working on each element, colorizing each element. I got the background buildings looking pretty good and everything like that. And I started doing the ground lighting effects, just subtle things. Yeah, just more work, touching up this and that. And this is the part where I started getting into the character drawing, and this is where my doing the second course actually paid off, because I actually had an idea of like what to do, like how to work with this. So again, I had a bunch of like reference images, and I really heavily relied on reference images to get the just to get the form correct. I pulled a bunch of images from here and there, so I kind of posed different elements in different places, and then kind of marked out how I learned in the course to like draw the body shape and then the core, and then different, the arms, how to properly draw the arms according to like dynamic opposing curves theory and stuff, and just kind of built out the actual form of the character. I made sure that the proportions were correct, and so it actually looks proportionally correct, instead of like the leg's way too long or whatever, the arm's way too long. So I kind of marked things out on different layers and just kind of worked in the pose. And you can see I'm just drawing in the actual very rough form right now, using different reference images. The challenge is I'm not doing a kind of a straight human, so there's a different elements of like a fox nose and fox ears, like how to place them correctly, get the eye line, the eyes positioned correctly according to the theory that I learned, and just taking different elements for different pieces and then kind of creating the overall. So it's like using reference images to get the piece that I want, and not copying directly, but mostly, just taking that from here and that, using my own character as a model here of how the actual hair looks and stuff, things like that. So this is the part where I actually start drawing in the rough details. So this is like the second sketch where it's like you're drawing in like rough draft details over the form, and just kind of using my character as a reference here, the hairstyle and all that, drawing over the form to match the actual 3D geometry of the form, using the character's clothes as a reference here. And yeah, just drawing in the rough sketch here. And if I didn't take this course, like I would be completely lost in the woods. I wouldn't know how to properly proceed. But this now I had a good, decent understanding of how to draw certain things. So I just kept working at drawing in the different details and elements along the way. On and on, working. I had to do a little bit of adjustment to the pose because it wasn't looking quite right, especially the feet. It didn't look quite natural, so I had to adjust the 3D form structure of the feet a little bit, and then draw the shoes around it. Just making adjustments. This is a very rough, detailed sketch. And once I felt happy with that, just keep on working here. So I used the elements of the gun from another photo, repositioned it so I can kind of get the general idea. And this is pretty cool, like how it was actually coming together from a bunch of other images to actually what it's looking like now. Yeah, just continue to fill out details, and I had to reposition the ears to the head angle, but just using my eye, it looks pretty good, I think. And once that was done, I had the rough detail. I went in with the actual more solid line art. This is the line art phase where you're taking another layer and you're drawing out clean lines and everything. And just to make sure that's the form we'll be actually painting in. Just to make sure everything's looking pretty good. I think that's pretty darn good for my first actual attempt at. I mean, if you look at my artwork for like character drawing, like previous to taking the course, I would never be able to draw something like this. It would look absolutely terrible. But this is actually, really good result of never having done this before. So I was pretty happy with it. So what I did, I kind of inverted the colors and I kind of placed it in the scene of where it's gonna go, and kind of like, okay, how am I gonna do this? Made some masks and stuff, and then I put it on white just so I can colorize. My plan was not to like directly colorize in the scene because I couldn't really see what's going on. So I decided to colorize just on a white according to the different references and my own character model, how it actually looks. And kind of using both in conjunction to kind of get the idea of the right colors for the character. The darker jacket, belt straps, pants. Just get the overall base colors in for the model. And then I'll deal with the actual environment tone shading after the fact, once I get everything looking good, like a base color model. So once that's all done, I got the white background in using Procreate, and then I kind of placed in the scene. I had to darken it up because the scene's very dark, and then I kind of had to apply a different bloom effect for the gun, and then the final thing was I had to go in and I kind of had to soften up these drawing lines. Like, I couldn't decide if I wanted to keep the drawing lines. They defined a lot of things, which was cool. But it kind of gave it too much of a cartoony look. And if I got rid of the drawing lines, then it would look too much like a painting. There'd be no direct definition like in the eyebrows and stuff. And I didn't like that either. So I kind of went for more of a balanced approach. I really went and kind of smudged a lot of the hard line definition of the drawing in, and kind of smudged out some of the lines a little bit, just so they're not so pronounced. So it doesn't look so cartoony. And then I finalized everything by kind of getting a lighten effect. So I darkened one side with Procreate. You can actually just straight up darken, and then I lightened one thing and colorized according to the background line, which is kind of like a blue, red, green. So I went with a kind of a purple, and I just kind of did from the reference images, like her elbow and shirt, just different things. Like some of them are light. Is it perfect? No, absolutely not. But it kind of gets the point across. This part is lit up, and this part is in shadow, and then I made sure to give actually a shadow here. And then the final thing was I actually did the which wasn't too bad at all. I actually did the logo in Inkscape. I went and I found a font, but I couldn't use the font directly, so I went and vectorized the font, and I kind of made a couple adjustments to make it my own custom thing. And I just added a triangle. Now you can't really see the logo on a black background, so I doubled the image and moved it up, which I think looks pretty cool, in white, and put some bloom around it, and that works just as well. I think that's great. There's my logo title name for the, and yeah, that's pretty much the finished art piece. I'm pretty satisfied with this art piece, and um, like especially for my first one, I think it's pretty decent. And then as a final touch, I went in to I went in and actually put it into my game of the first main menu, and I just took a couple of things. I made sure there was one thing missing. I made sure that there's some sort of ambient occlusion by the feet, so it actually makes contact with the ground. It looked kind of not right um, with the feet. Um, is it a perfect piece? Absolutely not. But is like I think it's worthy and it has a high enough quality of the actual game. I think I really enjoy it, so I'm happy with it. One thing that I think not really a mistake, but one thing's learning is actually I designed this according to I think AI's recommendations to be at like a 4K, 38 by 40 by 20, I think 2160, and that's like the overall universal standard. And that's fine, but what I really wanted to do was something in the beginning where I wanted to design like a ultra wide, which means extra work because you kind of have to do this extra side, and that's cool. But I didn't want to go back right now and actually because I did it originally for this perspective. So, but I wanted to support ultra wide because I use an ultra wide screen. I don't know if anybody else, but anyways, if I didn't do this, it would actually squeeze it in and cut off the top and bottom. So what I did instead was I went into Procreate and I created a new canvas and I put the actual reference image on the sides and I just kind of blurred it out because and you can't really tell it's actually the game image and not artwork, but it kind of matches the feeling of the scene. So um, it kind of extends the artwork without having to go in and actually do the rest of it at this moment. Um, but this is the end result. Like at the end of the day, like this, I completed my main menu artwork, and I think that matches the quality of the overall game, especially for a solo developer, like an indie dev or whatever. Like, is it AAA quality? Absolutely not. Like, but is it better than, me just amateur drawing, or is it better than me paying money that I don't have for an artist to create something that doesn't quite match my vision? I think so. Um, so my next art pieces will, get better and better, of course. But I think this is pretty great. I'm pretty happy with it. So there's that. Um, and then I pretty much wrapped up the week. I was pretty much getting back to now. I'm free to get back to my previous thing and start working on the actual like the menu system stuff, like setting the resolution and doing builds and stuff for that part of the. That's the next thing. The last hour of the week, I was actually setting up Logic Pro because I was kind of wanting to do some custom menu art, menu music composition for this first screen instead of the default sound effects they have playing for this. I think the main menu needs not like a musical score, but some sort of like musical ambience or something. And I have some ideas, but I kind of have to open up Logic Pro and mess around and kind of figure out how to, because at some point I'm gonna have to do some sort of like not creating sound effects, but creating some sort of like musical score ambience or whatever for the game. So that's one thing. But I think next week I'll be mainly working on what I originally started on, which is the main menu stuff, setting resolution, and a whole other laundry list of stuff. But this part is pretty much this whole like I think 2 week phase of speed running art school and actually getting this final first piece out, I think that milestone is completed. So, um, yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. That's pretty much all I have to talk about. We will see you next week. Bye.